It's another day, another video, and we're going to get into a very interesting video where Andrew Wilson completely destroys this woke feminist. As I usually say, I do not want to talk too much. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell button so that you're notified when one of my videos come out, and let us get into the video.
I don't agree that women shouldn't have the right to vote because of the draft. You believe the draft is ages 18 to 30, and you definitely think men over the age of 30 should have the right to vote, even if they're no longer in the age frame for the draft. Hope that makes sense. Yeah, okay. So I think this is a debate that you're going to have with Andrew on this. So
I'm preparing myself to lose, but
At least
But
you
I'm
know
ready.
this.
myself for you to win.
I guess, okay, so Andrew, then what is your, is your main point that women shouldn't be able to vote because they are not eligible for the draft, or like they do not have to be signed up?
No, my argument is very simple. That if women can vote, but women cannot use the mechanisms of force against the enemies of the United States, and only men can, then men can vote to send, or women can vote to send men to war. And
Which is
since
crazy.
the domain of war is always going to be men, if women have the power to send them to fight wars, that means that they can send them to fight wars on their behalf. And that is a great, I would say, immoral position to take, that you can have one elite group, which does not have to fight wars, send another non-elite group to fight them on their behalf.
Yeah.
If, for instance, we were to reverse this and I were to ask you from a racial lens, if whites could vote to send black people to war, but then themselves never had to fight in said war, would you consider that to be moral?
No,
Then why
but,
would it be moral for women to be able to vote to do this?
Great argument.
well, because I think like if a 75-year-old man, I think he should be able to have the right to vote, but he's not going to be.
A 75-year-old man can be drafted to go to war.
After that great display from Andrew with the arguments he presented to her, I don't even know how she's still arguing for the fact that women should still be allowed to vote even though they don't have to be drafted into war the same way as men. I don't know how she's still going to try and argue this point and doesn't see, if you were to put it on a racial lens, you see how one-sided it gets and how problematic it gets, but yet she still goes on to argue and not just think to herself, that was a good argument, let me not try and argue this point and let me go and think about my position.
But he's not going to
A
be.
woman cannot.
Do 75-year-olds get drafted to war, though? Does that actually happen?
They could be, well, whether it has happened or not, the potential is there for it to happen. The potential is not there for it to happen to you.
I guess I didn't realize that there was the potential that a 75-year-old.
Yeah, you sign up for selective service when you're 18 years old, and if the need is great enough, the United States can call on you regardless of your age, if you're a man. They cannot do this for women. So since this is true, that means that women could vote in such a way as to send all of the population and draft the population of men to send them to war on their behalf. If we were to look at this through any other lens, racial,
People say it's
socioeconomic, any other lens, you would say it's immoral, but for some reason women won't say it's immoral for them to be able to have that power to do to men specifically.
And the feminist indoctrination is so strong. I don't know what's so hard to say that, yes, this is one-sided. You have one group of people being able to place their vote a certain way to send another group of people to war while they don't have to, and she doesn't see anything wrong with that. But of course, when you put it on the racial lens, she sees all of the issues with it. But in today's world, people just do not care about men.
Yeah, the whole basis of my argument was just that I didn't realize that 75-year-olds could get drafted or selected, and
What
so
if they
I,
couldn't?
I
Well, right now that may not be the case, but they can extend it. They can extend it wherever they want, and they can lower it. They can lower the draft age to 15. In fact, in World War II and World War I, when the draft came around, there was plenty of 15, 16-year-olds who signed up for the draft. Okay, they can lower it to whatever age they need for fighting age men, and they can raise it to whatever age they need for fighting age men. Shortly after 9/11 happened, in fact, when there was a war going on in the Middle East, they raised the enlistment age for who they would take up, I believe, to 40, 45 years old. The potential is always there, in other words, for men, but it's not there for women.
And also,
and since that is the case, why do you get to vote to send them to war? Why do you get to do that? Like, why do women get to have that exclusive privilege? I don't understand that.
Makes no
No,
sense.
and I understand your point, but also there are a lot of men who are not eligible to be drafted because, I don't know, they don't have a kidney or they're colorblind or something like that.
yeah, women would also be.
If the need is great enough, like it is in Ukraine or it is in other places right now, okay, if the need is great enough, they will lower the standard to bring the men in. They don't care. So when you say, oh, he's not eligible, he's eligible to peel fucking potatoes. He's eligible to do this, he's eligible to do that. But if we're looking at it from a collective basis, okay, there's a lot of women who can't vote either because they're in comas, right? You would agree that that's true, but so what? That has nothing to do with the fact that women as a collective can vote to send men to war. It's the greatest injustice of our time. It's the greatest social injustice of our time, and nobody even thinks about it. Women take it for granted. They don't even care.
Does anybody else have something to say?
Well, I just wanted to add to this point. You said, do these older men, they get drafted? We actually have some historical examples of this happening. So in World War II, it was called the Volkssturm. So Nazi Germany. It was at the very end of the war. Germans were desperate, so they conscripted males between the ages of 16 and 60 who were not already serving in the military in some capacity. So 16-year-olds all the way up to 60-year-olds. They were obviously very desperate. They needed the manpower. And so, yeah.
When it's necessary, men will be called always to warfare, never women. And here's the greatest injustice, right? Because the descriptive truth is that women can't do it. They can't. They can offer some limited support roles, but they can't fight in frontline combat. They can't. And the very first thing the enemy would do if women were fighting in frontline combat is they would SA them in order to demoralize your military. That's the very first thing they would do. And they would run propaganda 24 hours a day saying, we're impregnating your women right now and sending them home with our bastard children.
They would do.
That's what they would do if you allowed women in frontline combat situations. Our government knows it. They don't want to say it because it hurts women's feelings, but that's the truth. That's the very first thing they would do. 24-hour, round the clock, they would be rounding up every female soldier they could find. They would be impregnating them and sending them home pregnant to demoralize the enemy.
And what Andrew said there was absolutely correct. The problem is because we live in this Western world, whether it be America, England, or any other Western country, we live in these countries where they want to cater so much to people's feelings, they don't care about what works best. If it infringes on certain groups of people's feelings, they will do that over actually doing what's best. And that's why we're in the nonsense we're in now.
Our government knows it. Every government knows it. That's why women are not suited for frontline combat, and they never will be. So ultimately, what I'm going to say to you is that women having the right to vote can send men in their stead to fight their wars, and you could never give me a different demographic of people where that would be okay with. Ever.
We wouldn't be able to do it. Great argument from Andrew. Very great argument.
Do you have more?
Well, I mean, I guess since you took away my main point here, then I can't really debate that anymore.
Okay.
It's commendable.
Me and Andrew disagree on this a little bit. You know, I think women should be able to vote.
Well, so then why do you think that women should be able to vote?
But see, I'm the egalitarian feminist here. I think women should be drafted.
Okay.
That's the trade-off, right?
Yeah, he's a psychopath. But here's why I think Brian is wrong on this. Okay, I understand his position. Many men take such a position. The reason that he's wrong on this is because if we allow women into the draft, okay, even if they are drafted, they'll never be put in frontline combat for the reasons I already stated. So it still wouldn't be fair anyway. They would be fucking pay clerks. They're not going to be walking into minefields.
Yep.
They're not going to be in frontline combat, shooting at the enemy while the enemy's shooting back, right? That's an extreme rarity now. Almost no women have ever died in combat, ever. in the United States. It's almost never happened. It's very, very, very rare. Very few of them have, whereas hundreds of thousands of men have died on behalf of the nation because women aren't equipped for the reasons that I stated. The enemy will round them up and send them home pregnant to demoralize you. And the Japanese even had that as part of their battle strategy for the Chinese, to go in and impregnate as many of their women as they could in order to demoralize the Chinese. They literally called it the R-wording of Nanking. That was their entire battle plan, and it worked. So it's like, no, this is an insane position. Brian's wrong on this too. It's just an insane position. I want a ready-made force of savage, brutal men whose entire job's to kill the enemy with extreme prejudice. That's what I want to see.
But the thing is, Andrew, is the 19th Amendment is never going to be repealed. We have to be pragmatic and live in reality here. It's not going to be repealed. Women's voting is here to stay. So, given that paradigm,
it could be, if you made an amendment that women had to fight in the same capacity that men did in war, women themselves would demand the 19th Amendment be repealed.
That's true.
Yeah, but that wouldn't happen either, is the thing.
That can happen. The draft board itself is now negotiating whether or not to draft women, right? The push for whether or not women, even when they're drafted, by the way, they're going to do everything they can to repeal that too. There is a possibility. I never thought abortion would be repealed in my lifetime either, and it was. Right? So there could be a constitutional crisis when it came to the 19th Amendment due to the fact that it is disparagingly discriminatory towards men. And that could be a good basis for a justification to attack the 19th Amendment in the Supreme Court. And this is the same exact logic which went to attacking Roe v. Wade, the same justification, which is that there was a fundamental unfairness here.
And as Andrew stated, it's absolutely crazy that there is such a thing as the draft in America and nobody bats an eye to it. They talk about my body, my choice, women are oppressed, yet they don't mention the fact that if there was to be a war so strong enough, they would be able to draft men, and women have the right to vote men into going into those wars while they don't have to. But of course, they don't care about men.
But I mean, this whole draft equalization thing has been attacked multiple times in the judiciary, the legislature, and what they just continue to arrive at is we're going to keep the status quo. We're not going to draft women. We're going to just keep it how it is. There's not even a conversation about walking back women's right to vote. So, I mean, I think it's far reaching to say, well, next step is going to be, let's walk back women's right to vote. I think the most logical...
But Brian, you're missing a key component, which is that women have not in our lifetime yet been the appeal and the deciding vote on a future war that American men have to go fight. And when we enter into the type of significant war where hundreds of thousands of men come back in body bags, you watch how fucking quick that changes.
But we would already be embroiled in the war, so yes, I mean...
Yeah, that's true. We would already be embroiled in the war, but the thing is, it's really funny how when hundreds of thousands of young men end up coming home in body bags, how the political landscape and political correctness and all that bullshit goes right out the window.
Right out the window.
It's a fair point. I mean, if we were, the thing is that any war that America's involved in, that's resulting in that many casualties. I mean, are there not then concerns over a nuclear conflict?
Yeah, that's always a concern, but the truth of the matter is that I don't think that most nations will use nuclear arms because it would lead to the devastation of the thing they're trying to protect, which is their nation. So most nations will always stick with conventional warfare, and conventional warfare now is devastating. We haven't been in conventional war in years, and now we see what the technology is like in conventional warfare with a second world nation, Ukraine and Russia, and it's absolutely devastating.
But yeah, that was a very interesting conversation, and I'm surprised that the feminist was able to back down very quickly when that is not usually the case. They would argue things that they don't even know, but this person was actually fairly decent, which was definitely different to see. But anyway, if you guys enjoyed the video, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow me on Instagram, TikTok and X at YinkaThatGuy, and I am